So let's talk about sex, baby. Hey, turn that crap off. Sorry. Hi. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about hexing or curses. Now, to begin with, curses are actually extremely rare, believe it or not. Actual curses. I mean, I'm talking about curses that a magician or a witch has actually cast and has a full effect without actually telling the person they've done it. In most cases, it's a psychological effect, and this can happen for a number of reasons. Either a magician or a witch has actually cast a curse and they've not cast a curse, but all they've done is gone to the person and said that they've cast the curse, and the person believes it so much that it actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then the person will have a little bad luck, and they think, okay, great, the person was actually telling me the truth, and they did cast a curse on me. And then it just snowballs from there. They just get more bad luck because psychologically they believe it, and they cause it to happen in their life. Another reason is that a person is or believes that there is somebody in their environment, and maybe a number of people in their environment, in their surroundings, that do have the ability to actually cast curses, and for some or other reason they just believe that they've had a curse put on them. Nobody's told them. They just believe that the curse has been put on them. And the same thing happens. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They believe it so much that they actually create the curse themselves. And it's, as I say, it's kind of like you get one little piece of bad luck and then you believe it more. And that belief gets instilled and gets strengthened, and it just snowballs. So you actually start creating more bad luck in your life. Now, you'll probably find that most magicians and even witches, a lot of people come to the occult and to the craft looking for power. I know I did. I used to be bullied a lot, so I got to that point where I was just sick and tired of it, and I wanted to get back at everybody, really. So I actually originally started out wanting power, and it took me a long time to admit that. But and a lot of people probably won't admit it. Maybe it's not true for everybody, but I think a majority of people, that's the reason they started. But regardless, so a lot of people come to gain power, over their adversaries and their enemies, and in the beginning, that's what happens. So you start gaining a bit of power. Your practice starts to develop more, and you feel like somebody pisses you off one day, and you think, oh, I'm just gonna cast a curse on them, and it's kind of immature, really, but you'll find that as the magician or the witch develops further and further in their practice through their life, they get to a point where it actually doesn't matter anymore. That hatred kind of disappears, and you don't need to cast curses on people. I mean, if somebody crosses you, it doesn't really matter anymore, because you go beyond that. You go beyond it to the point where you start looking for knowledge rather than revenge. So a magician or a witch at that stage to actually cast a curse would rarely, rarely, rarely happen. And before that, the person quite often doesn't have the power to do it. So this is why I say curses are quite rare, actually. Now, if you do want to cast a curse on somebody, you'll probably get everything together and you'll do the whole ritual, and you'll cast this curse on this person who, I don't know, stole your coffee cup at lunch or something stupid, and you might find that it doesn't work. So what are the reasons why it doesn't work? Well, firstly, you haven't been able to gain enough strength in your magic, enough power in your magic. To cast a curse actually does take a lot of energy and a lot of power. You've got to actually build up a hell of a lot of energy to actually cast. So maybe you haven't gotten to that stage in your practice where you can actually do that. So just put it on the back burner and just carry on practicing and develop those abilities. Another reason might be that the person is protected, and whatever curse you cast on them just either dissolves, or worst case scenario, it comes back and bites you in the ass, which can happen quite often. So if you haven't actually checked that on that first and you're just casting willy-nilly, then you'll probably burn yourself out. So then you'll start casting curses and they'll come back to you and you're cursed, to put it plainly. And that in itself is stupid. So quite frankly, I think curses are stupid anyway. I don't see the reason to actually cast them. Unless you threaten my daughter, if you threaten her life, then you might as well just lay down and just take it, because you're going to get it. I mean, if you threaten my daughter's life, that's the end of the world for you. But other than that, I wouldn't bother, unless it's for healing, actually. Some years back, I actually had a lady come to me saying that she'd just been diagnosed with cancer. And it was early stage, they'd just caught it, and she asked me if I can do anything. So I actually did a ritual. At the time I was working a lot with shamanism, and in that practice what I did, I called on the four quarters, but I called animal spirits. And in the one quarter, I believe it was in the west, I called Jaguar. And I worked with Jaguar on this cancer. And in many regards, that could have been considered a curse. I actually waged war on the cancer cells to destroy them. And that, as I say, that in itself is a curse. What I did was a curse against the cancer cells, to kill them. Anyway, whether it worked or not, 2 weeks later she went back to the doctor for a follow-up and there was no cancer. The doctor said, sorry, you must have made a mistake with the original diagnosis. Whether he did or whether what I did worked is irrelevant. She had cancer, she didn't have cancer, that's what counts. Now, sometimes things can go a bit wrong. Certain things can happen that you didn't account for, and innocent people can get hurt. If that happens, it's your responsibility. If you can handle that, then, it's up to you. But years before this one I just mentioned, I helped a woman who, either her and her husband or just her had joined a coven, and the high priestess started demanding that they sell their souls to Satan. First of all, you don't sell your soul to Satan. And secondly, a high priestess of a Wiccan coven shouldn't be doing that in the first place. Anyway, they refused and they left, and because of that, the high priestess got pissed off and decided to curse the husband. And he went from being very healthy to having 2 heart attacks a week. And she was beside herself. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know where to turn, so she turned to me and asked if I can help. So over a 2 week period, we did some work. I basically got her to knit something, just anything, a square, whatever it may be. And as she's knitting, she puts all of the energy around the curse, around her husband's illness, etc., into the knitting. And then when she'd finished, we got the timing right because she was halfway across the world. And she was to burn the thing she knitted. And then as it's burning, I astrally went and grabbed the energy and threw it back at the High Priestess. Unfortunately, that night, her sister decided to borrow the car and crashed it. So as I say, things can go a bit awry, and you need to bear in mind that if those things happen, it's your responsibility and you take on that responsibility. Whatever you do in magic is your responsibility, nobody else's. You can't blame anybody else but yourself. But I mean, the last I heard about that one, she'd lost everything and was living on the streets. So, make sure that if you want to cast curses for whatever reason, whether it's to actually save someone's life or because Bob at the water fountain decided to push in, I don't know, whatever reason it is, then just remember that whatever you do, you're responsible for it. Another reason why curses often don't work is because ethically we don't allow them to happen, and subconsciously we don't allow them to happen. So you may be like really, really angry at somebody, you may be really pissed off with them, but when you actually go to cast the curse, your own ethics prevent you from carrying through with it. So physically you do continue what you were doing, but whereas you need to build a ton of energy and really with your will really project that energy, something holds you back, and so the energy doesn't get projected and it kind of just creeps along there and doesn't really go anywhere, because ethically you just can't allow yourself to do it subconsciously. That's usually the main reason why people who are casting curses find that they don't work. It's because subconsciously you just don't allow it, which quite frankly I think is a good thing. If your subconscious is keeping your ethics in check, nothing wrong with that. Because if you're going to cast curses, it has to be for a good reason, and it has to be justified. If it's not justified, then it's not going to work. So please, if you're going to start casting curses, check in with your own ethics first. Really question. Take a week or two just to question whether it is justified, whether you can take on that responsibility and it won't actually harm you. Consider that the person may actually be protected, especially if they're a magic worker themselves. But I mean, even if they're not a magic worker, they can be protected, and whatever you cast at them is just going to either dissolve or bounce back straight at you. So if you're not going to consider those things, then quite frankly, you deserve whatever you get. and that's cursing. I don't advocate cursing unless it really is a severe case, and there's no other way um, to actually resolve your situation, and it is so severe that it is justified. Um, I really, I mean, in my 25 plus years of practicing, apart from the two I've mentioned, I don't think I have cast any other curses. Maybe one or two small ones, and I only know of one person who's cast a curse on me effectively. If anybody else has, then it didn't work, obviously, because I don't know about it. So they were pretty, so they were pretty useless. So yeah, and that's my 25 years of practice. Rare, just extremely rare. And unfortunately, you get some people who just believe that they're cursed over and over again. And the more you try and tell them that it's psychological, that they actually haven't been cursed, the more they just dig their heels in and believe that they have. And I've just found that it gets to a point where you can't persuade them otherwise. So, not much you can do about it, unfortunately. But as I say, majority of the time it's psychological. So if you believe you have been cursed, what do you do if you have been cursed or you think you have been cursed? First of all, did somebody tell you that you've been cursed? If they have told you you've been cursed, did the person actually cast a curse, or are they doing it psychologically? Are they cursing you psychologically so that you believe you have been cursed and therefore you create the curse yourself? If nobody has told you that you have been cursed, why do you think you have been cursed? Did you do something wrong? Do you really think you're that important? That's the balls honest truth. Do you really think you're that important that somebody would actually just go around and waste their energy and time cursing you? If you are that important, that's fine. But if nobody's told you, then it's difficult to actually find out if you have been. The best way to actually do it is to go to a really reputable psychic, or a reader of some kind that can actually read your energy and find out. Now, what they might find, I think everybody reads energy slightly different, but usually what happens is if a curse has been attached to you, it usually attaches as a cord. I usually see it kind of a smoky dark cord that attaches to your aura, to your body. Now, if you are able to scan your own aura for energy that shouldn't be there, you'll probably find there are quite a few of these cords attached. So you have to be discerning of which cords are what. There's a lot of reasons why these cords get attached. It can be a curse. It can be a psychic vampire that's decided to attach to you and is just draining energy off you. But in that same case, it could actually be a psychic vampire that doesn't know they are a psychic vampire. In many cases, this is either somebody who's sick or the elderly. Because they need the extra boost of energy, they subconsciously attach to people and they start draining energy from them. It's not their fault. They don't know they're doing it. It's just how they continue in life and how they survive. And obviously, sick people need that extra boost of energy in order to heal themselves, so they'll attach to people and start pulling the energy off them. And there are obviously people who don't know that they're psychic vampires. Narcissists will do it. They'll attach to you and drain your energy. They don't do it consciously. It's all subconscious. But in that case, you know, narcissists shouldn't be doing that in the first place, whether they know it or not. So that's a different story. But if you want to help somebody who's sick or elderly, that's that's up to you. You can leave those cords attached. But as you're scanning, you'll probably find there are a few of these cords. So you have to be discerning, and you have to try and figure out which cord is the one that is the curse, if there is a curse. And then in order to detach it, there was a very good method mentioned in Dion Fortune's book, Psychic Self-Defense. So what you do, you go into a trance state or a deep meditative state, and you imagine yourself standing and you're holding a sword, and I like to see it flaming, so I have a flaming sword. And then all you do is you just slice through that cord and you detach it. Now, when you do this, what often happens is that the person that attached the cord will try and get hold of you, because they just suddenly feel this break and this loss, and this disturbance in their own energy, really. So they might try and get hold of you, and if that happens, then you know that it was them who attached the cord. Or they just know what's happened and they will try and attach it again. So put up some protection. I'll probably do a video on protection, and grounding and things like that. Probably a good one to do. But put up some protection, and just scan every now and again and just check that it hasn't been attached. If it has, just repeat the process. Just keep cutting that cord, and eventually they'll stop attaching it. And that's it. That's actually the best method I've found to actually get rid of a curse. I mean, obviously you can send it back, do some kind of mirror spell. But obviously the best thing to do is be proactive right from the beginning. So, put up protection so that people can't do it in the first place. And if you've got that, then you can, you don't need to worry about being cursed because you've got protection in place. And there's a lot of different ways you can do protection. You can search the internet and through books. There's lots and lots of ways. Don't just look for protection spells or protection this or that. Also look for things like worded like warding. Warding is a protection. The one I learned right at the beginning of my practice was very, very simple. All you do is just, again, get into a meditative state, so your mind is calm and clear, and then you just ask your ward to appear, because you've always got a ward around you. Before you're even born, you have a ward that is assigned to you to protect you. So all you need to do is just ask the ward to come forth and show itself. It might take 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 sessions of doing this for it to actually appear. But when it does, don't be surprised if it's something that you just didn't expect in the first place. I did a warding for my daughter when she was a baby, and she had quite bad flu, and was really worried about her. So I did a warding for her, and what came was ivy. I just saw this ivy just growing all over her cot, and I couldn't figure out why ivy. I expected some kind of entity to come and stand over her cot and just watch over her and make sure that she's okay and put healing energy on her and everything else. And this ivy appeared and grew all over, and I was thinking, what the hell's ivy got to do with it? And then I went and checked on correspondences and through my herbal healing books, and turned out that ivy was actually a herb used for flu and things like that, of that nature. So that was quite a surprise. But don't be surprised if your ward is something you could completely out of the blue that you really didn't expect it to be. They can be quite strange sometimes. So there is warding, and there's a load of protection spells. You can put barriers. There's a ton of stuff. You don't need to go overboard. Once your ward is, if you actually call your ward and you start working with your ward, then the ward actually strengthens, because it gets that energy from you. So it actually strengthens, and you can talk to it. If you're worried about something, then you can say, please, can you just check on this and help me out here, just protect me a little bit more. Met this weird person who, I think might be stalking me or whatever. Just go check on them and kick them in the arse. You can do that. You can speak to your ward, and your ward's actually the best one. On a long-term basis with barriers and stuff like that, you got to keep checking on them, but your ward is always there. So you'll do some research on protection and warding. As I say, I'll do something in the future about that, because it would be a useful, handy video to have in my little menagerie of videos I'm building up. And I'm going to stop this video here. It's going to get too lengthy and rambly. From next week, I'm actually going to go through one of the books I wrote years back. It's called The Black Crow. The first one I wrote was The Reality of Things, and that was kind of a general discussion about the occult, or different aspects of the occult. It was aimed mostly at the beginner, but the adept magician could use it as well. Just as I say, just a general discussion about all different topics. What I've learned and from my perspectives. The second one, The Black Crow, extended from that, and that was it's more practices, meditation, circle casting, ritual casting. The lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, the Kabbalistic cross, all these things. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through that book chapter by chapter, and anything that I can actually put into a video, I'm going to do. So talking about the Kabbalistic cross, pronunciation, proper pronunciation of names like archangel names and God names, how to vibrate the names, all of this stuff. So I'm going to do that from next week, and I think that'll be pretty interesting. So tune in for that. That's going to be cool, because the reason I'm doing that, apart from the fact that it gives me content to actually create videos, this channel is about manifestation and magic, but combining the two, if you don't have the foundations of magic, you're not going to be able to use the methods that I keep talking about. But unless it's some of the mainstream stuff like visualization, I mean, everybody can do that. But I'm talking about magic, using magic as a manifestation technique. So if you don't have the foundations, then you can't really use it. So I'm going to go through it from the beginning and start building up some foundations for you. So that'll be pretty interesting. Anyway, so if you like my content, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the little notification bell so you know when I bring out new videos every Tuesday and Friday. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.